in this section, we're going to look at data reliability, polls, and price indices. Statistics are used by governments, companies, organizations, and individuals to make important decisions. They can help us understand and hopefully improve the world we live in. It is important that statistical studies or experiments are conducted using appropriate techniques, eliminating bias, so that we are able to interpret statistics accurately. Unfortunately, some people intentionally use statistics to mislead others, to promote their own agenda, or to increase sales of a product. We must be aware of proper statistical procedures and be able to watch out for misleading statistics. Data reliability. When reading statistical data, it is important to consider the reliability of the source. Be leery, or be careful of statistics from those trying to sell a product. When someone is trying to promote, you want to be leery of statistics from people who are trying to sell a product. When someone is trying to promote a point of view, look at who conducted the survey or experiment and the validity of the survey or experiment. You might want to ask or find out what sampling technique was used. And make sure that it is an appropriate sampling technique that does not have a lot of bias. But, by the way, we're going to talk about sampling techniques next week. Which source is more reliable in this example? Are there other possible sources that could be more reliable? So the first topic is the benefits or adverse effects of consuming dairy, and the second one is the possible complications from paint fumes. Once again, lots of distractions in my house. Okay, pause the video, take a look, and answer the questions, and when you're ready to take up your answers, resume the video. Okay, so the choices for the adverse effects of consuming dairy are a pamphlet from an animals' rights group, a pamphlet from the Dairy Farmers of Ontario, or a pamphlet from the World Health Organization. Both the pamphlet from the Animal Rights Group or the Dairy Farmers of Ontario, they might have different reasons for wanting you to either believe that consuming dairy is really, really good for everybody, or really, really bad for everybody, depending on which one. Some people might think that the pamphlet from the World Health Organization would be more neutral and therefore be the better source of information. For the second one, the possible complications from paint fumes, your choices were the Home Depot's website, the paint company's website, or the Environmental Working Group's website. My preference would be the Environmental Working Groups. You might disagree. Maybe there's another source that might give you a better, you might think is more reliable. The reason why I like the Environmental Working Group is it's a not-for-profit organization that's trying to get all chemicals listed in different products. Polling companies conduct interviews with randomly selected people to determine their opinions on a wide range of topics. These kind of surveys are called polls. The results of polls are often reported in the media, particularly during elections. Polls usually state a margin of error that describes how reliable the data are. As a media consumer, you need to know how to interpret these results. Okay, so a while ago, a few years ago, I found this excerpt from CBC News. It was taken on October 22nd, 2014. So it says, meanwhile, a new poll from Forum Research suggests Tory is in the lead among mayoral contenders. Forum Research said it surveyed a random sample of more than 800 Toronto voters on Monday, including some who have already cast a ballot through advanced voting. 43% of voters who participated said they had voted for, intended to vote for, or were leaning towards voting for Tory if the election had been held Monday, compared to 29% of Ford and 25% for Chow. The poll was conducted via an interactive voice response telephone survey. The margin of error for the survey is 3 percentage points, 19 times out of 20, according to the forum. So in this next example, we want to really take a look at what does this part all mean. So this means that there is a 95% chance, because 19 out of 20, that part there represents, is the same as 95%, that if the poll was repeated, one would expect results within 3% of these results over here. Okay, so the results that they found, it would be within 3% of those results. Now, there are a lot of criticisms about the accuracy of polls at the moment. In many recent elections, the election results have been quite different than the results from the polls. This is rather interesting. So if you are interested in this, you can find many different articles and videos that offer explanations about why we're seeing these huge differences today. Price indices, what are they? Prices for everyday items such as gasoline change over time, or it might change by geographic location as well. And these prices are often presented in newspapers and other media in the form of price indexes or indices. The base year or city for comparison is assigned a value of 100 in an index. The other values will all be relative to the base value. So I found two different current examples of indexes. So the first one is a current housing price from Teranet National Bank House Price Index. And this is an independent representation of the rate of change of Canadian single-family home prices. So from this price index, they have indicated that all indices have a base value of 100 in June 2005. So that's what we're comparing to, the prices of homes in June 2005. So for example, an index value of 130 means that home prices have increased 30% since June 2005. Now this statement was with the index. So often when you read an index, it will give you your base value and it will help you interpret the index. So take a moment to examine the index and answer these questions. So again, pause the video to do that, and when you're ready to take up the answers, resume the video. Okay, so Vancouver's index of 279.41, that means that if we take 279.41 and we subtract 100 from it, which is our base value, we get 179.41. So that means that Vancouver's housing prices have increased by 179.41% since June 2005. The second question that you were supposed to answer is which city on the list had the lowest change in price since 2005? And by what percent has housing prices in this city increased since 2005? Well, if we take a look at all those numbers, Halifax was the lowest. When we subtract 159.71, or sorry, when we subtract 100 from 159.71, we get 59.71. So 59.71% was the increase in Halifax's housing since June 2005. Okay, the next example. So here is a list, a price index that I found from CEO World magazine that compares the cost of living in several expensive countries. New York City, which is a very expensive city in this index, is given an index score of 100. So take a look at the index And think about why this might be in this CEO World magazine. Why would they be interested in the cost of living in different countries? And then answer A, B, C, D. Pause the video to do that, and then resume when you're ready. Well, CEOs of different companies might move around the world and work in different countries for multinational corporations. So they might be interested in their purchasing power, to help understand their pay and what they can afford to buy. They're going to want to know how much they have to pay in rent and different costs of living expenses. So that's probably why it was in this particular magazine. So how does the cost of living in Switzerland compare to New York City? We're looking at this number here. So we're comparing the number 122.4 to the number 100 because New York City gets the base score of 100. So the cost of living is 22.4% higher in Switzerland. Than New York City. Which country on the list had the cheapest groceries? Well, when you took a look at this list, you should have saw that Denmark had the cheapest groceries because it has the lowest index price. Where is restaurant dining more expensive than New York City? Well, there's a few countries where it's more expensive. Denmark is one. Iceland's another. So I'm looking for numbers that are above 100. Norway is another one. And Switzerland is also more expensive. Now notice that Denmark, the price is almost 100, so it's comparable, but it's slightly more expensive than dining in New York City. And D, how does the cost of rent in the listed countries compare to New York City? So we're looking at all these rent numbers. Notice that all the rent numbers are significantly less than New York City. So it would be cheaper to rent a home or a condo in any of those places than it would be to rent in New York City. So they are all cheaper. And in fact, they're all at least 37% cheaper because this here is 37% less than New York City. And that has the highest index price. It's the highest index for rent. That's it for this lesson. Now I do want to tell you a little bit about the next lesson, what you're going to do. So in the next lesson, you're going to watch some videos that are a bit more exciting than my videos. And after you watch those two videos, you have to find an example of misleading statistics or misuse of statistics, and you are going to post that to a discussion. Your post could be a picture that you find on the internet. It could be a title. It could be a graph. Okay, so there's lots of choices on what you choose to post as your example. Okay, have a good day, everyone.